attentive. She was loving. Um, she was smart. She was kind. She was funny. She was understanding. Um, and we had many things in common. The things that, I don't know, stuck in my head that I noticed that I thought might be a little bit of a dilemma at some point. For example, I worked quite a lot, and when I would come home from work, um, I would come in the house or the hotel, and she would sit me down on the couch and give me a glass of wine and uh, take my boots off, set them to the side, and um, I've never experienced anything like that in my life. I just never thought I was, I just never experienced that before. And it became a regular thing um, that she did, this kind of routine. And I remember one night I came home from work and I think she was on the phone or something and or busy. She was doing something. And so I sat down on the couch and I took my boots off and suddenly Miss Hurd approached with this look on her face and she just said, "What did you just do? What did you do?" So, what do you mean? You took your boots off. I said, "Yeah, yes, I did. You were busy, you know." No, no, no. That's my job. That's what I do. You don't do that. I do that. Okay. All right then. And then she said, "Let me get you a glass of wine." And she brought me the glass of wine. But I did take pause, of course, at the fact that she was visibly shaken or upset that I had broken her rules of routine. I thought that strange. And then once you notice something like that, then you start to notice other little tidbits and things that come out. And then, and
Mr. Depp, we're going to talk about Miss Heard in a couple minutes, but I'd like to ended up acting in the first place.
um, I ended up acting by accident. I was a musician and I moved out to Los Angeles with my band when I was 20 years old. Um, and then there were a couple of uh, things that happened in the band where the band split up. And I remember I was filling out job applications, and then Nick, with a friend of mine who happens to be, he was an actor, less known then than he is now, Nicolas Cage. And I was filling out job applications at any video stores, clothing stores, anything, and just to be able to pay the rent. And um, Nick Cage said, why don't you meet my agent? Because I think you're an actor. I think you could be an actor. And I said, look, I'll meet anybody. I'll do anything at this point. And so he sent me to his agent, Eileen Feldman, and I met with her. Um, she sent me to read for a casting director named Annette Benson, who was casting a film called The Nightmare on Elm Street. Um, and they brought me back to read for the director, Wes Craven. And I read for Wes Craven and somehow got the job. but I mean, $184 a week, which I'd never seen that kind of dough before in my life. And so I suddenly, then I did some other couple of dumb movies because I still, in my mind, I was a musician, and this was just a way to pay the rent, pay the bills, live. Then suddenly I found myself on that road. I had been placed on that road as an actor, and then one thing led to another, from film to film, and then I was cast in a TV series called 21 Jump Street when I was 22, I believe. Well, that's many years later, but I had been Disney had offered me a film called Hidalgo, when it was about a man and his horse in the desert and stuff. And I read the screenplay, and I just didn't think it was for me. But I wanted to have a meeting with them because at that point I had a 2-year-old, two and a half year old daughter, and so, or three, and for 3 years I watched nothing but animated films, cartoons from Tex Avery to Bugs Bunny to that was all I watched with my little girl. And I received the screenplay for Pirates, and it was I somehow, in my mind, I saw this opportunity, like a way to mesh characters like cartoon characters. For example, Wile E. Coyote gets a boulder dropped on his head, and he's completely crushed. But they cut to the next scene, and he's just got a little bandage on his head. So I started thinking about the parameters that were available to cartoon characters, and if they were available to cartoon characters, and nobody ever asked a question, whether you were 5 or 95, you didn't ask a question. Oh, Wile E. Coyote, of course he's still alive. So I tried to incorporate these kind of ideas into the character of Captain Jack Sparrow, so that I could try to push those parameters and control the sort of suspension of disbelief, to be able to control the characters' actions, words, movements, and put them in a place where the things that he would do or say were so either ludicrous or mainly something that also something the cartoon characters can get away with things we can't. Captain Jack Sparrow can do things that I could never do.
Right. You mentioned that you received the script. When was that?
Sorry?
When did you first receive the script for Pirates of the Caribbean?
The first screenplay I received was 2002, I believe. Yeah, 2002.
And what did you think of that script when you received it?
I thought that it had all the kind of hallmarks of a Disney film. That is to say, a kind of a predictable 3-act structure, with character of Captain Jack was more, he was more like a swashbuckler type that would kind of swing in shirtless and, you know, be the hero, much to the chagrin of Disney initially.
Now, when you say you made changes to the character, how did you do that?
Just, you know, in preparation, you know, the very same way that I've ever approached any character. You look, again, the cartoons, you know, the Pepe Le Pew, uh, it's like making a soup, you know, it's ingredients, it's just ingredients. Um, there's some Pepe Le Pew in there. There's some Keith Richards in there. There's a bit of a, you know, I figured this is a guy who's been on the sea for the majority of his life. Quite possibly his brains may have been scrambled a bit by the sun. And also I thought that he'd been on the sea for so long that he had his sea legs, but when he got on land, he just didn't have his land legs. So he could never quite stand still.
Now, you mentioned that the film was, to your understanding, a great success. How did your life change after the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie came out?
Um, though I'd been around for many years already, and people knew who I was and all that. After Pirates 1 came out, there was a completely different. It was a completely different way of life was being sort of, you know, my family and I were being plunged into. That is to say, you know, at our house in Los Angeles, you would have people trying to climb the gates to get in to see Captain Jack Sparrow. You would have people trying to bust in the gates dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow. You would have it and follow you and your family. So that was the moment when there was no other way but to we had to hire more security guards, and I was certainly worried for my kids about the work that I've been given. I can't complain about any of that. I have no right to. But it does make you have to think very creatively with when you've got little kids about how to take them to the park or, you know, to the swings or to the this or that movie, or, you know, it becomes a strategic mission.
Mr. Depp, the jury's heard quite a bit from Miss Heard's side about your drug and alcohol use, but I'm sure they'd like to hear from you. So could you please just tell them about your history of substance use?
Certainly. Again, this goes back to when I was a young boy. Excuse me. At about the age of, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, I can remember vividly my mom telling me to go get her nerve pills, you know, out of her purse that was hanging on the back of the door. So I'd go get the nerve pills and I'd bring her the nerve pill, take it, and you know, after a few years, you start to notice. Well, you start to think about nerve pills, and then she seemed to calm down after she took those nerve pills. So when I was 11 years old, I wanted to calm down, and I didn't know how to. So I'd bring my mom her nerve pill. I would walk away, and I would take one myself, um, to escape caring so much, feeling so much, to escape the the chaotic, um, nature of what we were living, through. Um, so that was the beginning when I realized that nerve pills calm the nerves. Let's go party. I want to party. I've never used the word party in my life. I've never I've never taken any substance, for a party. I have taken these substances over the years, on and off, um, to numb myself of of uh, of the ghosts, the wraiths that were still with me, and, from my youth. So, I needed, yeah, there, everything. It was just self-medication. Um, one of those get me out of here moments, and where you want to escape from is your own brain, your own head.
How often have you used substances throughout your life?
Having started with my mother's nerve pills at 11, of course, that's around the age that, you're introduced to, marijuana. You're introduced to, and also depending on where you're living and who you're, associating with, and who's around the neighborhood. Um, I No, I wasn't shy to, try a substance to see if the effect of it would maybe even take a bit more of the edge off. So I started, at 11, and I mean, I even mentioned this in an interview in TV Guide, if anyone remembers TV Guide, in 1989, where I was asked by the journalist, why I believed that, kids who